In this video, you'll discover how to address a bacterial overgrowth issue in the small intestines. Hi ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Zarowski and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, then it is a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification, and join our notification community so I can help you excel your health and your life. In this video, we're talking about small intestine bacteria overgrowth, also known as SIBO. Now, this is a problem for a lot of people. I've worked with many people who have had this issue, but I've also had this issue myself, so I can give you some real clear advice as to how I went about reversing it. And so this problem can be very difficult to reverse in many cases, but let's go ahead and talk about some of the different symptoms that arises with SIBO. Let's go ahead and talk about the things that really causes SIBO and then what you need to do in order to reverse this issue. Now, when we look at the small intestines, let's do a quick little run through. Basically, the small intestines is responsible for taking that food and absorbing the nutrients for your body. So it's broken down, goes into the small intestines, that's where it's absorbing the nutrients. And then after it goes into the small intestines, it goes to the large intestine. And in the large intestine, what is going to happen is that food is going to be broken down into waste so that it can then exit the body. Now, the small intestine should have very little bacteria in it. It should have very little bacteria, whereas the large intestine should have a lot. And so what happens in people who have small intestine bacterial overgrowth, essentially they get a lot of bacteria that goes into that small intestines and it causes a lot of symptoms. Let's go ahead and discuss them. Now, the first one here is bloating and distension. This is a very common symptom. People wake up in the morning and their stomach feels huge. They eat a meal and their stomach feels huge, and it causes a lot of discomfort. And the reason for this is because what's happening is these different fibers and starches and sugars, they're going into the small intestines and they're fermenting and causing a lot of gas. And so we have to make sure that we are watching fiber, starches, and sugar, and also supplementation. That's another place that many people go wrong, is with supplementation. They find out that they have some small intestine bacteria issues and they jump in the supplementation that actually is having a negative effect on them. So we got to be careful with that. We'll talk more about it in a minute. The next is constipation and diarrhea. So somebody can have constipation or diarrhea, or actually alter between both. And so that's important to know as well. The next is nutrient deficiencies or nutrient deficits. And so when we look at this issue, what essentially happens is all that bacteria in the small intestines is going and taking those nutrients and keeping them from you. So though you may be consuming some different vitamins and you may be consuming a healthy diet, the bacteria is getting those nutrients and your body is not. And so your body can really be starving in this case. And then when we look at the next one here is antacids. So people who are on chronic use of antacids, let's say they get heartburn all the time, they're taking these antacids on a regular basis. I mean, I've heard of people who are taking them after every single meal. What you do is you alter the pH in the intestines, in the stomach, and as a result of that, you create a very bad bacterial environment. Now, the pH in the stomach is responsible for keeping certain bacteria at bay, keeping it out of certain places. And if you alter that, then essentially what will happen is you can have this small intestine bacterial overgrowth issue. So antacids are a big problem there. Then also an existing gut condition. If you're someone who has leaky gut, if you have celiacs, if you have Crohn's, any of these different gut conditions can really be a way of opening the door for this bacterial overgrowth issue. And so when we look at these different symptoms here, these are good signs that you are someone who has small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Now, some of the ways that you can also go and determine if you have it is you can do a stool analysis, and then you can also do a breath test that will go and give some good data as to whether or not you have some of these issues going on. But to kind of give yourself a good starting point, this is a really good way to go, is just looking at some of these different symptoms and see if you have it, because if you can look at all these and go, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me, then there's probably a good chance that you have this SIBO issue. Now, step 2 is looking at why it happens, okay? And so there's a couple things we have to consider. So first of all, a depressed immune system, so your immune system just is not functioning well. The next is a chronic stress. And so essentially, if you have chronic stress, it's going to change and alter the way that your intestines is functioning. And so, chronic stress is never a good thing. And that's why people who have chronic stress get ulcers and all kinds of other issues. It's going to alter the pH. You have someone who has depressed gastric acid, okay, altered the pH. Essentially, you're opening the door for this bacteria to be in places it shouldn't be. And so that's something that we, relate to the antacids and so on and so forth. And then the other thing is irregular peristalsis, okay? So someone who is eating a lot and then sitting in a desk chair all day, someone who's eating a lot right before bed, essentially what's going to happen is this causes an irregular peristalsis. And so movement of the body is very important for digestion and peristalsis. And so when we look at this issue, it also can cause a small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So these are some of the different reasons it can happen, some of the reasons behind it, but also, we can look at poor diet and a few other things as well. Now, the next step here is going to be how do you actually go in and solve this issue, okay? So this is an interesting one because there's a lot of different content out there, blogs and so on and so forth that talk about this issue. And there's just, like I said, from my personal experience, myself having it and working with people and reversing it with them, there's just no way that most of this information that you're going to find online will even come close to fixing this issue. And so what we need to look at first of all is food, okay? So you need to avoid certain foods, starches, sugars, legumes, many foods that actually are very good for you. You need to avoid during this time, and it's simply because you have to really avoid foods that are going to feed that bacteria. And on the other hand, you need to make sure that you're eating certain foods. And the reason for this is simply because what our goal here is to actually starve down that bacteria, but also make sure that we're feeding the body. Because once again, people who have this small intestine bacterial overgrowth issue, essentially what happens is that you're going in and you're feeding this bacteria, but you're not feeding self, you're not feeding your body. And so we need to make sure that you are getting the proper nutrients, but we're actually taking away the nutrients that bacteria needs to thrive. And so what I'm going to do is in the description below, I will post a link to a chart that actually has the foods that you need to avoid and the foods that you can consume. And there's a lot of them. So anyway, I'll put them down below so that we don't spend 20 minutes going over them right now. And so that'll be in the description. The next thing that is powerful is doing some intermittent fasting, actually just abstaining from food for a period of time can really help kind of reset that gut and help kill down some of that bacteria as well. And then last here, supplementation. Now, a lot of people will talk about, just using fasting alone or using diet alone. I can tell you that I've never seen anybody do it. As a matter of fact, it can be very, very hard to complete with just some of these different strategies that we just talked about. So supplementation is important. And there's a couple things specifically that you need to really focus on doing is, first of all, healing the gut lining. So, working on that gut lining, which is probably inflamed and having a lot of stuff going on with it. A lot of times just like leaky gut is associated. So anyway, healing that gut lining is very important. The next thing when it comes to supplementation is making sure that you're actually clearing out some of those different gut bacteria. And so we want to make sure that we're clearing out that bacteria so that we can, remove it from our small intestines and, have everything start functioning right. So, it's not about just putting good bacteria in, but it's a lot of times about taking that bacteria out. And so anyways, we'll actually use a microbial cleanse to just cleanse that bacteria out of the gastrointestinal tract with a natural remedy that, does it safely. And then when we look at supplementation as far as probiotic, this is important too, because most people will tell you to stay away from probiotic. What they're failing to understand is that when it comes to the probiotic, the reason that most people will have a negative reaction to a probiotic when they have SIBO is simply because of this, because most probiotics contain a prebiotic. So what that means is that not only are you getting the probiotic, but you're getting food for that probiotic, which in normal cases is very good. However, if you have SIBO, it's not good because that prebiotic is not only going to feed those bacteria that you're taking, but it's also going to feed all the bacteria in the gut, and it's going to cause you to become bloated and have a lot of issues from it. So we need to make sure that we're getting the good strains of bacteria in there, but we need to make sure that we're not feeding the bad stuff. And so, it's important to take a probiotic, but one that does not contain prebiotic. Now, the other thing is very important to make sure that you're getting good nutrients. We already talked about nutrient deficits being a very common problem as a result of people who are suffering from SIBO, especially the fat soluble nutrients. The A, D, E, and K are also very important during this time. Making sure that you're taking proper enzymes is important too. So essentially when we look at this, what we're doing is we're looking to kind of reset that whole environment in the gastrointestinal tract. We're looking to reset some of that acidity with, apple cider vinegar capsules as well. And so we're looking to just create a whole reset in there, clean out some of that bacteria, and create an environment that is actually sustainable for your gut. Because people who have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth over time start to develop a lot more issues. So it's very important that you actually go in and solve this problem. So all the resources for this video, the foods and the supplementation that I use, it'll all be in the description below. Once again, this problem can be very difficult to reverse. Even if you're doing everything right, it can take several months to reverse. And so anyway, take that all into consideration. Give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends who may be suffering from this same issue. If you have any questions, put it in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos on fasting and ketosis and all the different great topics that are going to help you improve your health. I'll see you in the next video.